اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم، أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر عظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه علي، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك، من علي بفكاك رقبتي من النار في من تمن عليه، وادخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد. ارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لي الذنوب العظام، فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وصفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على قبيح عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك، فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. يا رب إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة والإحسان إلي وتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه، فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى، وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر، وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنتك نبيك، حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فدقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، واعزز به ذلتنا، واغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طالبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، واعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، واعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا، إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عددنا، وقلة عددنا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل اللهم على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآله الطاهرين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فادخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فاخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فاطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تكن لنا، في عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت، بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. اللهم صل على محمد وآله محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وأن تقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك، ولا تستبدل بي غيري. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان، أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل محمد على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم اغني كل فقير. اللهم اشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكس كل عريان. اللهم اقضي دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشفي كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولائے کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار۔ مسجد اداس منبر کوفہ اداس ہے، تر خون میں خدا کے ولی کا لباس ہے، روتا ہے آسمان، زمیں غم سے پھٹ گئی، جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولائے کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار۔ مسجد میں روزدار پر کیسا ستم ہوا، کعبے سے آ رہی ہے صدا و مصیبتاں، غم سے نبی کی قبر بھی اب کانپنے لگی، جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولائے کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار۔ ہے یتیم شبرو شبیر ہو گئے، عباس دل کو تھام کے روتے ہوئے چلے، سر سے ردائے زینب و کلثوم گر گئی، جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولائے کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار۔ دنیا میں بے کسوں کا سہارا نہیں رہا، اترا تھا جو فلک سے ستارہ نہیں رہا، عرش بری پہ فرش ازا آج بچھ گئی، جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولا کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار۔ زہرا لحد میں روتی ہے حیدر کے واسطے، کہتی ہے چین قبر میں اندر نہیں مجھے، بچوں پہ میرے غم کی گتا آج چھا گئی، جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولا کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، 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 یا حیدر کرار۔ جبریل نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں مارے گئے علی، مارے گئے علی، مولا کائنات پہ تلوار چل گئی، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار، یا حیدر کرار۔ بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔ الفاتحہ۔
My dear elders, brothers and sisters, Salamun Alaikum wa Rahmatullahi wa Barakatuh. On behalf of Wessex Jamaat, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Imam of our time, to all of you mu'mineen and mu'mineen around the world on the night of the Shahadat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Please kindly take notes of the following announcements. Tonight, after Salah, we will commence with the Amal program for Layal al-Qadr, beginning at 10:30 p.m. on our YouTube channel. The full program for this has been circulated by email. Tomorrow, we will be holding a program for the day of the Shahadat of Imam Ali alayhi salam, which will commence at 1:40 p.m. Once again, the program and the YouTube link has been circulated by email. On Wednesday, 5th of May, we will be having an Amal program commencing at 10:30 p.m. The detailed schedule for this will be circulated on Tuesday evening. This Friday, 7th of May, the Jamaat will be holding Dua Joshan Kabir program commencing at 10:30 p.m. on YouTube. If you would like any verses from the dua, please email info@almahdi.org.uk by Wednesday or contact Brother Muhammad Abbas Jaffa. The World Federation's newly launched Hausa Online will be commencing in the new academic year from this September. The modular-based program supported by Ayatollah Sistani allows Mu'mineen to complete Hausa studies online from hugely experienced scholars via a state-of-the-art platform at a pace that suits them. The deadline to apply is Friday, 14th of May, which will inshallah be Eid Day. So if you're interested, please ensure you apply before then. You can find out more or apply at www.hausaonline.education. We are blessed to be hosting Sheikh Azhar Nasser once again this evening. Can I request that we welcome him to begin the majlis with salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin by extending my condolences to Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman on the occasion of the Shahada of the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi alayhi. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to come together and to grieve and to share some reflections on the legacy of Amir al-Mu'mineen. In our last session, we began a discussion on one of the sayings of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, which is found in Nahjul Balagha, specifically is saying number 289. And we mentioned that this is a narration where the Imam Salamullahi alayhi is reflecting on and he's recounting the memory of someone who is very dear to him. The Imam alayhi salam, he says, كَانَ لِي فِي مَا مَضَى أَخٌ فِي اللَّهِ, that I used to have a friend for the sake of Allah. And you see, brothers and sisters, of course, the Imam doesn't mention who he was, but we can assume that it was one of the very devoted companions of the Prophet, either Ammar ibn Yasir, maybe it was Abu Dhar. Allah knows best, but the point here is that this individual exhibited certain qualities that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib loved. And we mentioned that he says, وَكَانَ يُعْظِمُهُ فِي عَيْنِي صِغَرُ الدُّنْيَا فِي عَيْنِي. Imam, he begins by saying that what made him great in my eyes is that the dunya was very small in his eyes. And we spoke about the virtue of zuhd. وَكَانَ خَارِجًا مِنْ سُلْطَانِ بَطْنِ. He was not controlled by the appetites of his belly. فَلَا يَشْتَهِي مَا لَا يَجِدْ. He never desired things that he didn't have, that were related to the material world. وَلَا يُكْثِرُ إِذَا وَجَدْ. And he was not excessive with the things that he was granted. He was very balanced. And then the Imam says, and this is where we left off, وَكَانَ أَكْثَرُ دَهْرِهِ صَامِتًا. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says that one of the qualities that I loved about this individual was that most of the time he was silent. You know, brothers and sisters, we put a great premium on speaking. We think that a person of knowledge, a person of taqwa should always be speaking. But here Amir al-Mu'mineen, he highlights the virtue of silence. Speaking has its place, but in the same way that we praise eloquent speakers, we also need to praise and admire those who restrain their tongues. وَكَانَ أَكْثَرُ دَهْرِهِ صَامِتًا. Most of the things that we say are unnecessary. You know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he speaks about the atmosphere in Jannah, he says, لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا. In paradise, the mu'mineen, they will not hear laghu. Laghu is useless talk, words that don't have any benefit. ولا كذابا, nor will they hear lies or sinful speech. So a mu'min, of course, should not speak anything sinful. But even more than that, a mu'min needs to exercise caution, meaning that if it's not useful, it's better to remain silent, even if it's halal. You know, just because something is halal, it doesn't mean that we should say it. So the Imam alayhi salam, he says about this individual, you know, if we want to know what does Ali ibn Abi Talib admire in a person, Imam admires those who restrain their tongues. He admires this virtue of silence. It is narrated that Adam, salamullahi alayhi, the Prophet of Allah, Nabi Adam, when he was removed from that garden, and there's a discussion whether this was an earthly garden or it was a different dimension that he was living in and brought to the earth, that's a separate issue. But the point is that when he was dwelling on the earth and he was sitting in the company of his children and his grandchildren, the narration says that his children, grandchildren, they were making a lot of noise in his presence, and he would sit there silently. And one of his offspring, they come to him and they say, Ya Nabi Allah, there's so much noise and commotion, people are chattering, but you sit there and most of the time you're silent. Adam alayhi salam was not a person who used to speak a lot. And when he was asked about this, Adam alayhi salam, he says, he tells his children and his grandchildren that when I was taken out of that blissful garden, I wept a lot. I cried because I was removed from that blessed place, that place of proximity to Allah. So I wept and I wept and I wept, and then Jibreel came to me and said to me, Ya Adam, إذا أردت الرجوع إلى حيث ما كنت فيه فأقلل كلامك. O Adam, if you want to return one day to that place of bliss, to that place of nearness to Allah, to that garden, then reduce your speech. You see, brothers and sisters, it's very important to be people who restrain our tongues. So the Imam says, وَكَانَ أَكْثَرُ دَهْرِهِ صَامِتًا فَإِنْ قَالَ بَذَّ الْقَائِلِينَ وَنَقَعَ غَلِيلَ السَّائِلِينَ. So this person who the Imam alayhi salam considered to be a friend, a very close friend, the Imam says most of the time he was silent, but when he spoke, he would silence other speakers, meaning that he was so eloquent and articulate that when he spoke, everyone would listen, meaning that his words carried weight. And this naturally happens, brothers and sisters. If we reduce our speech, when we speak, our words will carry more weight. And this is, what we see in our maraji'. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them for us and prolong their lives. Before the invasion of Daesh to Iraq, there were many people, even among the Shias, they used to criticize, Sayyid al-Sistani. They used to say that, how come he doesn't speak? How come he doesn't come and, how come he doesn't go for interviews? How come he doesn't accept to be interviewed by the media? Why doesn't he give regular sermons? Now, of course, Sayyid al-Sistani, our Maraji', they're very wise. They know that most of the media outlets, they're not concerned about conveying their words accurately. We know that there's a lot of misinformation and manipulation and distortion that happens in the media. And these grand scholars, they don't want their words to be exploited and misrepresented. And furthermore, you see that because Sayyid al-Sistani does not speak often, you see that when he does speak, it has a lot of weight, because he's not one to talk just for the sake of talking. So when you reduce your speech, you see that your silence and your words carry weight. And with Sayyid al-Sistani, hafidhahullah, you see that his silence is just as powerful as his statements. And sometimes his silence is a powerful statement. So this is what Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, he teaches us. This is what he admires in this individual. وَكَانَ أَكْثَرُ دَهْرِهِ صَامِتًا فَإِنْ قَالَ بَذَّ الْقَائِلِينَ. When he speaks, he silences other speakers. He quenches the thirst of questioners. So we have to make an effort, brothers and sisters, to reduce our speech. If you really evaluate and if you do a self-audit of your words, a lot of things that we say are unnecessary. Either they're not true, they're gossip, and even if they're not haram, even if the words that we utter are not haram, they don't have value, they're useless, they don't have benefit. And then the Imam alayhi salam says, كَانَ ضَعِيفًا مُسْتَضْعَفًا, that this person, Imam says, they appear to be weak. Meaning that this individual that the Imam is remembering, who is his friend, akhun fillah, is his brother in faith, his brother for the sake of Allah, he did not appear powerful. Meaning that there was nothing impressive about his appearance. He was not, a muscular guy where if you see him, he instills fear in you. No, the Imam says he didn't look powerful. But then the Imam alayhi salam says, فَإِنْ جَاءَ الْجِدْ فَهُوَ لَيْثٌ غَابٌ وَصِلٌّ وَادٌ. So he looked feeble. He didn't look powerful or strong. But at the time of fighting, when there was a need to fight, he was like a lion who has emerged from the jungle. And he is like a serpent that has emerged from the valley. And this shows us, brothers and sisters, that bravery has nothing to do with your muscles. There are people, they go to the gym every day. They can bench press 200-300 pounds. But shaja'a, bravery, is related to the heart. There are some people, they have powerful bodies, but they have cowardice hearts. Shaja'a is about what's in the heart. There were many companions of the Prophet who were physically bigger than Ali ibn Abi Talib. But what happened to their muscles in the Battle of Uhud? Amir al-Mu'mineen, he had shaja'a. He had a powerful body and he had a courageous heart. What's the value of muscles if you have a cowardly heart? So you see that if someone has the quality of shaja'a, if they're courageous, this allows them to compensate for their weak bodies. So someone, you see Ammar ibn Yasir in the Battle of Siffin. Ammar ibn Yasir, according to some narrations, he was in his 90s. He was an old man, 80, 90 years old in the Battle of Siffin. What made him so powerful? Because he had shaja'ah. He had courage, he had bravery. And this stems from his iman, from his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Imam says, وَلَا يُدْلِي بِحُجَّ حَتَّى يَأْتِي قَاضِيًا. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, another quality of this brother that I had was that he would not put forth an argument unless it was decisive. Meaning, when he argues, he has done his homework. Sometimes we argue and we speak without ilm, without knowledge. When he would put forth an argument, it would be decisive. It would be a very powerful argument. We also need to learn, brothers and sisters, that when we speak, we have to do our homework. We have to know all of the arguments. We have to know the opposing arguments and counter arguments and the possible refutations. We have to be decisive in our arguments, and this requires ilm. It's very problematic. It's a sin to speak without ilm. So the Imam says, لا يدلي بحجة حتى يأتي قاضيا. And then the Imam says, وَكَانَ. So look at these very noble qualities and ask yourself, that do I have any of these qualities? Because this is iman, brothers and sisters. This is faith. وَكَانَ لَا يَلُومُ أَحَدًا عَلَى مَا يَجِدُ الْعُذْرَ فِي مِثْلِهِ حَتَّى يَسْمَعْ اعْتِذَارَهُ. The Imam says he would not reproach anyone. He would not blame anyone if it was possible that there might be an excuse. And he would not blame anyone until he hears the excuse from the person. Brothers and sisters, this, wallah, if we were to practice this, 90% of the fitna in our communities would disappear. There's a hadith that I'll share with you where the hadith is from Imam it's from Imam al-Kadhim salawatullahi alayhi. And the hadith says, the Imam says, in atakum atin fa-asma'akum fil udhun al-yumna makruha. If someone comes to you, if another fellow mu'min comes to you, and they say something in your in your right ear, they say something bad about you in your right ear, ثم تحول إلى الأذن اليسرى فاعتذر وقال لم أقل شيئا فاقبلوا عذرا. Imam al-Kadhim salawatullahi alayhi, he says, if someone comes to you, your fellow Muslim, your fellow believer, your brother or sister in Iman, if they come to you and they say something bad about you in your right ear, and then they come to your left ear and they make an excuse and they say that I didn't say anything bad about you, Imam al-Kadhim says, accept their excuse. Now you may say, but I heard it. They did say something bad. Imam says, accept their excuse. This is what Ahlul Bayt want. They don't want enmity in the hearts against other mu'mineen. We have ahadith that tell us that if 40, 50, 60, 70 people come to you and they say so-and-so said something bad about you, and then you go and you confront that person who was accused and they say that I didn't say it, Ahlul Bayt say, believe the person who was accused who says I didn't say anything, and ignore the 50, 60, 70 people that told you that no, that person said something bad about you. This shows you, brothers and sisters, that Ahlul Bayt want us to put aside the enmity and the grudges. This is what is expected of us. If we want to call ourselves followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, followers of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, this is what we have to do. We have to be forgiving. Amir al-Mu'mineen, He says that if your brother in faith does something, mistreats you, accept their excuse. And if there's an excuse, if they make an excuse, accept it. If they apologize, accept it. And if you can't, if they don't have an excuse, you make up an excuse for them. So for example, someone insults you. Another mu'min insults you. Instead of assuming the worst, say that, no, maybe he was having a bad, maybe I misheard. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they thought I was someone else. The point is, brothers and sisters, we have to make excuses for each other. This is what the Imam, and this is what Amir al-Mu'mineen describes. Because this person had this quality, that they wouldn't blame other people if it was possible to come up with an excuse for them. Amir al-Mu'mineen calls this type of person my brother, for the sake of Allah. Akhun fillah, this is not an easy statement. Amir al-Mu'mineen, to call someone my brother for the sake of Allah, this is the quality that they had. If it's possible to make an excuse, you make an excuse for people. You see, a mu'min is strict. They scrutinize themselves. They're very critical of themselves. But when it comes to others, they forgive. It's okay, I forgive you. I accept your excuse. I accept your apology. This is the quality of this is the heart of a believer. وَكَانَ لَا يَلُومُ أَحَدًا عَلَى مَا يَجِدُ الْعُذْرَ فِي مِثْلِ حَتَّى يَسْمَعْ اعْتِذَارًا. Some of us, we don't even allow the other person to defend themselves. We hear gossip, we hear that, oh, this person slandered you, and we believe it and we want to retaliate. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ahlul Bayt, salamullahi alayhim ajma'in, they say, no. You should ignore the people who are delivering the gossip and the slander. Make an excuse for them. وَكَانَ لَا يَشْكُو وَجَعًا إِلَّا عِنْدَ بُرْئِهِ. Imam says that another quality of this man is that he would never complain about an ailment while he was sick. He might mention it after he is recovered, meaning that this individual is not a complainer. He doesn't complain to people about his health or his problems. He turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't complain. وَكَانَ لَا يَشْكُو وَجَعًا إِلَّا عِنْدَ بُرْئِهِ وَكَانَ يَقُولُ مَا يَفْعَلُ. He would say what he does. وَلَا يَقُولُ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُ. And he would not say something that he himself would not do. So there is authenticity between his words and his actions. Meaning that he wasn't a talker. If he says something, that means he'll do it. And he'll never say something that he would not do. وَكَانَ إِذَا غُلِبَ عَلَى الْكَلَامِ لَمْ يُغْلَبْ عَلَى السُّكُوتِ. The Imam says, if anyone can surpass him in speech, no one can surpass him in silence. So you see that it seems that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he values the ability to remain silent, to have the discipline to stay silent more than eloquence and the ability to communicate effectively. That's important. Having good communication skills is important. That's a very valuable skill. But it's even more rare to have someone who can restrain their tongues. So the Imam says, if there is anyone who can surpass him in speech, there is no one that can surpass him in silence. وَكَانَ عَلَى مَا يَسْمَعُ أَحْرَصَ مِنْهُ عَلَى أَن يَتَكَلَّمَ. Imam says that he was more concerned about listening than speaking. The virtue of being a good listener. So you have the virtue of silence. The virtue of being a good listener. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Not only was he an eloquent speaker, the Prophet was a very attentive listener. In fact, munafiqeen, Allah mentions this in Surah At-Tawbah, they used to get annoyed with the Prophet because the Prophet used to listen to people. He was very consultative because, you know, many of these Jahili Arabs, they're used to dictators. You know, my way or the highway. But the Prophet ﷺ, he was very consultative. He used to listen. He was an attentive listener. And the Quran mentions the statement of the munafiqeen, the criticism of the hypocrites. وَمِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيَّ. And among them, among the companions, some of them were munafiqeen. Among them are those who seek to hurt the Prophet with their words by saying what? وَمِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيَّ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ أُذُنٌ. They used to call Rasulullah the ear because of how attentive, what an attentive listener he was. Imagine how ignorant these people are. They think that this is a weakness in the Prophet, that he listens too much, that he should just give orders to people. The Prophet ﷺ was a very attentive listener. We need to be better listeners. Many of our problems stem from the fact that we don't listen to people. We're more interested in speaking than listening. If we listen to people, the problem is we only listen with the intention of responding. We need to listen not with the niyyah of, so I can reply. I'm just waiting so it's my turn to speak. No. We don't listen with the intention of replying. We listen with the intention of understanding. We want to understand. وَكَانَ عَلَى مَا يَسْمَعُ أَحْرَصَ مِنْهُ عَلَى أَن يَتَكَلَّمَ وَكَانَ إِذَا بَدَهَهُ أَمْرًا يَنْظُرُ أَيُّهُمَا أَقْرَبُ إِلَى الْهَوَى فَيُخَالِفُهُ. And then the Imam says, if two things confronted him, if he had to make a decision and there are two choices he needs to make, one of two choices he needs to make, if he has to make a decision about a matter and he's confronted with two options, he would look into his nafs, he would look into his heart and see which one of these choices, which one of these options is my nafs more inclined towards, and he would do the opposite. Allahu Akbar. This is jihadun nafs. In fact, Imam Musa al-Kadhim salawatullahi alayhi, he gives us a rule of thumb. He says, إِذَا مَرَّ بِكَ أَمْرَانِ. When two things come your way, you have to make a decision. You have two options. لَا تَدْرِي أَيُّهُمَا خَيْرٌ وَأَصْوَبٌ. And you don't know which one is the better decision, which one is closer to the pleasure of Allah. The Imam says, فَانظُرْ أَيُّهُمَا أَقْرَبُ إِلَى هَوَاكَ فَخَالِفْهُ. Imam al-Kadhim says that if you want to make a decision about something and you don't know which is the better decision, which one is closer to the pleasure of Allah, see what option your nafs is more inclined towards. And Imam al-Kadhim says, do the opposite. فَإِنَّ كَثِيرَ الصَّوَابِ فِي مُخَالَفَةِ هَوَاكَ. Because most good things are found in opposing your desires. And we need to train ourselves to be like this, brothers and sisters. This requires tarbiyatun nafs. And we need to start small. We need to oppose our desires when it comes to some of the small things. You know, for example, this is an example. Let's say that for iftar today, you really want to have a specific dessert and you've been looking forward to it all day. Again, it's halal. But if you want to really build yourself, you're tempted, you really want that dessert, deny yourself that dessert. You may say, Sheikh, why? It's halal. Yeah, I know it's halal. But don't always give your nafs what it wants. Because if you're giving your nafs what it wants all the time, the nafs is going to overpower you. And the victorious people are those who conquer their nafs. Every once in a while, you have to show your nafs who is in charge, because you are the master of your nafs. You're not the slave of your nafs. And this is why Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi alayhi, when he used to eat barley bread, coarse bread, he would not even allow Hassan and Hussein to dip it in oil, in olive oil. Imam says, this is my nafs, and I want to discipline it. Ali is not controlled by his nafs. Ali controls his nafs. This is jihad al-nafs, brothers and sisters. And on a night like this, we remember that man who said, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba, when he was struck. Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba. Amir al-Mu'mineen is declaring victory over his nafs. Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was the sultan of his nafs. He conquered his soul. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, on a night like this, he is laying on his deathbed. He's spending his last moments with his immediate family. And you can imagine that on a night like this, Hassan, Hussein, Sayyidah Zainab, they are all surrounding the bed of their father. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he's in his late 30s. Imam al-Hassan is in his late 30s. Sayyidah Zainab is in her mid-30s. They're grown men and women surrounding their father, salamullahi alayhi, whose beard is white, whose beard is gray, who is 63 years old. Amir al-Mu'mineen, because of the poison that is coursing through his veins, he's going in and out of consciousness. The Imam alayhi salam, he wakes up and he sees that there is a bandage on his head. Someone had put a bandage on the head of the Imam to prevent the blood, to prevent it from bleeding, to control the blood. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he wakes up and he asks his children, أولادي من الذي عصبني? O my children, which of you is the one who put this bandage on my forehead? There's no reply. The Imam alayhi salam, again he asks, which of you is the one who put this bandage on my forehead? There is no reply. A third time, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he asks, أولادي من الذي عصبني? I beg you, my children, which of you is the one who put this bandage on my forehead, on my head? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he says, it was me, ya abata. I'm the one who put the bandage, I'm the one who wrapped it around your head when you were unconscious. At this moment, Amir al-Mu'mineen, looking at Imam al-Hussein, he begins to cry. Amir al-Mu'mineen begins to cry. They ask him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O our beloved father, why are you crying? Why are you suddenly bursting into tears? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he looks at Imam al-Hussein and he says, according to a narration, he says, بني حسين ولدي حسين أأشفقت علي وفي جرح واحد. Oh, my dear son Hussein, you felt sorry for me, you felt sympathy for me because I had one wound on my head. And you put the bandage because of one wound. من الذي يعصبك وأنت على رمضاء كربلاء وفيك عشرات الجروح. Oh Hussein, oh my dear son Hussein, you felt compassion in your heart for me. You had mercy upon me, and I only have one wound on my head. Who will be there to give you a bandage on the 10th of Muharram while you have tens of wounds on your body? Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, after a short while, he begins to perspire. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says to his children that when death descends upon a mu'min, he begins to sweat. The narrations say that everyone, they surround Amir al-Mu'mineen. He embraces them one by one. He farewells his children one by one. He gives his wasiyah to Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. He then extends his arms and his limbs, and he begins reciting Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Then Ya Mu'mineen, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he closes his eyes, وَقَدْ فَارَقَتْ رُوحُهُ الدُّنْيَا, and then the soul of Amir al-Mu'mineen leaves his body, and there is a cry in that room, Aywa Aliyah, Hassan, Hussein, Zainab, Kulthum, all of the children cry out, Wa Aliyah, Wa Mazluma, Wa Shahida, La Hawla wa la قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the ziyarah of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the holy city of Najaf. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to keep us on the wilayah of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and most importantly, we ask Allah to bestow upon us, to grant us the shafa'ah, the intercession of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam on the day of judgment, يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Hai Ali, lahu lahu hai musalla, lahu lahu hai jabi, lahu lahu hai musalla, lahu lahu hai jabi, lahu lahu hai musalla, lahu lahu hai jabi. ऐ जुल्म देख जरा, ऐ जुल्म देख जरा, कहीं अली तो नहीं, लहू लहू है मुसल्ला, लहू लहू है जबी, लहू लहू है मुसल्ला, लहू लहू है जबी, लहू लहू है मुसल्ला, लहू लहू है जबी. ये वार किस पे हुआ है, लरज गया काबा, लबे हयात पे ठहरी हुई है कुन की सदा, फलक है नाकुना, फलक है नाकुना, तो मातमी है ज़मीं,
لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی۔ لرز رہی ہے نماز طرف رہی ہے اذاں، خدا کے خون سے تر ہو گیا خدا کا مکان، ہے سوگوار علی، ہے سوگوار علی، تمام عرش مکی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی۔ بدر جہان سے حسنین کا گزرتا ہے، تمام کوفہ ہی لیکن یتیم لگتا ہے، یتیم آج ہوا، یتیم آج ہوا، خدا رسول کا دی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی۔ یہ بہن کرتی ہے زینب نہ جائیے بابا، لپٹ کے غازی سے کلثوم نے کیا گریا، تڑپ رہے ہیں حسن، تڑپ رہے ہیں حسن، کہیں حسین کہیں لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی۔ کیا ہے ظلم یہ کیسا دل پیمبر پر، ہوا ہے حالت روزہ میں وار ہے در پر، بقی سے کوفہ چلی، بقی سے کوفہ چلی، ہے فاطمہ بھی ہزی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی، لہو لہو ہے مصلی، لہو لہو ہے جبی۔ صلی علی محمد وآل محمد، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم۔
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا مولاتي يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا مولاي حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله الحسين سيد الشهداء. السلام عليك يا مولاي علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا مولاي محمد الباقر. السلام عليك يا مولاي جعفر الصادق. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا موسى الكاظم. السلام عليك يا مولاي علي الرضا. السلام عليك يا مولاي محمد الجواد. السلام عليك يا مولاي علي الهادي. السلام عليك يا مولاي حسن العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.